Russiagate gate. I continue to read everything about this and trying to keep the conversation away from Barack Obama committed treason to this is all just absolutely nothing. I'm confident the answer lies somewhere in between those two things. Dan, based on your current knowledge of this story, what's the worst thing the Democrats did in conjunction with trying to create the impression that Donald Trump's ties to Russia were greater than they actually were? It's the worst thing they did.
Well, I look at it differently because I think the statement you just made is a hindsight statement. And so I think at the time, this whole thing is about December, right? That's what this whole conversation is about.
Yeah, it's about 2016
the majority of the outrage is about December and the summer, and the summer of 16.
Yeah.
To what I've read at this time, there is nothing that at that time to me says that it was outrageous. I get how things looked once all the facts came out, that some of the assumptions were wrong.
I'm asking you what the worst thing.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying.
What's the worst thing? What's the worst thing the Clinton campaign did, from your point of view?
I don't know. I part of this, Mark, is I'm not trying to be like team blue and dig in. Is there's so much stuff out there that some of what I've read, I don't even believe is true. Like in the sense of I'm trying to figure out what is like a fact that is out there that I'm like, ooh. I didn't know that fact.
Sean, amongst red bloggers and talkers and influencers, what's an accusation that's made that you think is wrong and should be set aside and not considered part of the conversation?
I don't know. I think part of the problem is we haven't looked. Part of what I actually think the problem is that there's a lot of smoke here, and I think it deserves investigation. And therefore, when I say that, I mean, like the problem, the reason we don't know what's quote unquote wrong is because we were sold a bill of goods, told we couldn't talk about it, weaponized it against us, and now we're being asked, well, what don't we like? And the more that stuff comes out, I think that's the issue. I want someone to actually look through it and say what is true, what is the reality. But I don't really care about the statute of limitations at this point. There's enough serious accusations in there about material that was weaponized, coordination among campaign officials and U.S. government officials, that I want a serious investigation into this and people held accountable. But I can't answer the question until that happens.
All right,
Mark, I guess the one thing I would say, because I'm looking at the chat, it to my knowledge, the Steele dossier was not the basis for everything. It was a slice of the pie that went into their calculation. That obviously in hindsight was wrong, right? So at the time, the way that was treated as more likely to be real than not, right, was a wrong decision. But I keep seeing people say that was what they based everything on. From what I've read, and you go back to the Mueller report, the Senate bipartisan report that, again, Marco Rubio co-wrote, that was not the basis for the decision. So that's why I say trying to figure out fact from fiction and kind of the, like, to Sean's point, there's so much smoke that may be that some of that smoke ends up being real. And I'll be the first when it's proven to be like, that's wrong. But I think there's a lot of smoke in the other direction too.
Can I ask Mark's question a different way? Is there something in that report that has come out that you can say there is no way that happened? Like, I'll ask it the other way. Is there something that you've said? So right now, and let me just repeat what I believe the facts are. There was a dossier, the Steele dossier, that we can all agree exists in Israel. I've read it. I've seen it. I know it's true. I think that's a given fact. There is, and I'll paint this in the best possible light. There is an accusation that senior officials from Hillary Clinton's campaign, in coordination with her, funded by the Soros Foundation, in coordination with them, used that information, gave it to the FBI and other officials to help deflect from her own personal scandals. The FBI then used that as the basis for an investigation. Barack Obama then used information from that to deflect information, certain things that in one way versus another, to create an impression of Donald Trump. That's how I think mostly MAGA would interpret this. Okay. And again, I'm being generous.
Yeah.
That being said, if I read off what I believe the litany of the things are, what among those things would you object to?
I would say that's like a tenth of the picture, right? And that's the challenge. That's why when Devin Nunes did the report to begin with, it was not given any credibility. Remember, Donald Trump was president when that thing came out. Like it wasn't a and the reason it just went petered off, and even Senate Republicans ran away from it, was a tenth
Wait,
of the
can I
picture.
just?
So
I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to put a pin in this real quick. Based on the description, if I wrote like that narrative that I just gave, which again I think is the most toned down version of the MAGA interpretation of this, is there anything that I said, regardless of whether it's one piece or not, is there anything that I said that you would say, I don't believe that that's true?
Barack Obama part.
yeah, I was just about to say, I think how the Clinton campaign dealt with it, and then how the senior U.S. government officials dealt with it, I think there's a missing part in your logic, which is that I do not believe that Barack Obama sat there after the election and even leading up to it and said the Steele dossier, like, let's go play with this. I think their alarm bells were going off with what they were seeing in the real world, and they didn't know what was happening. And again, in the Hillary Clinton world, you know what they would say? God damn it, he was a total, I'll use a soft word, kitty cat, for not raising the alarm bells during the election because he didn't want to seem political. That's the Clinton world interpretation of how Obama dealt with 16.
Want more great clips like that? I've got an idea. Hit the subscribe button, be part of the Two-Way community, never miss a clip, and you can always watch our full episodes, join them live, go to twoway.tv.